What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Life After Strange right here on Player One vs. the World. We are staying in the True Colours era. I have the absolute pleasure of welcoming on Jim Hunt, who you will know as Reginald McCallister III, but probably better as Duckie. Jim, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
It's an absolute pleasure having you here, and I'm going to kick things straight off with a question related to True Colours. It's a question that Dr Lynn asked Alex in the game. It's, Jim, how are you feeling today? Angry, scared, sad, or happy?
Wow. I turned 78 a week ago, and I think that I'm doing everything I can to be healthy and safe and careful. And so actually I'm feeling probably way better than I should be feeling. It's a bright sunny day here in Colorado. And after we're through talking, I'm going to get my 10,000 steps in.
See, perfect. You don't look an age over 28. So perfect for that. But Jim, I've teased Life is Strange, but we're going to put it on the shelf for the moment because I think we're going to start with you. I speak to actors from all kinds of ages, walks, background, but you, my friend, are a legend in Colorado. I read a lot of articles about you. You're revered as a local hero. I even know that Webb told me that you have such a high reputation. We'll come on to Webb Pickersgill in a little bit, of course, but you know, you have such a great reputation, but I kind of wanted to know your story about how you ended up in Colorado, because you, where was it now? You grew up in Fort Morgan, and then you studied at the University of Colorado. How did you end up staying in Colorado?
I was born, my father used to say, I was born on the longest night of the year because of solstice, so he always thought that somehow colored my personality. Fort Morgan is a little town of about 12,000 people northeast of Denver, about 70 miles. But I'm telling you, the distance between Fort Morgan and Denver is way more than 70 miles. And so my mother died when I was 4. And my father made a quick decision to remarry someone who already had children. So I have a sister, and my brother died in March a year and a half ago. My father moved us to Albuquerque, New Mexico for 5 years. Then we came back to Colorado. I went to the University of Northern Colorado, actually, which was at the time was called Colorado State College. Went away to teach in Michigan for 3 years, high school English and theater, and then was married at the time, came back to Colorado. And my then wife and I have 2 grown daughters and are still dear friends, and we still consider ourselves the family. And I tried to leave, but I love Colorado so much. I love the mountains. I love Denver. And it just made sense to stay here. And I also got to travel a great deal. I used to work for a company based in London called the Institute for International Research. And so I got to work all over Australia, New Zealand, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the Arab Emirates. And so I feel like I have no desire to travel right now, but I've traveled so much in my life that just to be home feels really, really good. So, yeah, and I just started doing theater here over maybe 50 years ago, and I'm still doing it. And I think one thing that works for me is that I just don't want to play the old guy in the hospital bed hooked up to tubes who's dying while the family gathers around and either praises or disses or whatever. So I'm still saying no to things that just aren't interesting. So I still try to grow as an actor, and I love the theater. But I have to tell you, during the pandemic, I did a lot of Zoom theater, but people said, "Oh, you must miss it." And I went, "No, not at all." I'm quite happy to have some time off.
I can imagine so, and a lot of points you touched on that, and including the theater Zoom calls. I watched some of the Butterfly Effect uploads on YouTube, and includes Erika Mori. If anyone's watching, you can see Erika Mori do some of the reads in there. So I can see that, and you kind of mentioned it there that you stuck around in Colorado, and it was going to mention my own question, where it's like, I know a lot of actors who end up in LA. I speak to them when they're in LA. They have the dream of living the Hollywood dream. Does that always happen? But was the dreams kind of go into Hollywood, go into like film, mainstream film, TV, or was it you specifically focused on going into theater, and Denver was the kind of Colorado just turned out to be the best place that you were doing that that kind of like route of acting?
Certainly when I was in school, in college particularly, I had dreams of New York, of course. And in fact, my first teaching job was supposed to be very near New York City. And it just didn't work out. So my then wife and I ended up going to Michigan for 3 years, where I did a lot of local theater. Then when kids came, I think just gradually thought, I'm not ever going to go to New York. I have so many friends who have done the year or the 2 or the 3. Many of them come back. And I never had a dream of LA, though I love movies. And I think I love being on a movie set or a video set more than I like being on stage. I just love the pace of it. And that's why True Colors was so much fun, because suiting up like I was going scuba diving and having all those little balls put all over me. And it was just so much fun. I love the pace. I love the community. And I love that everything sort of happens one time and you get to retake 20 times to get the one thing you want. I also love live theater. I love that every audience is different, and so technically every performance is different. But I don't know. I did you watch my little movie, the little scary movie? Did you happen to see that one?
I haven't seen it, but I will definitely check it out now. You got my curiosity.
I'll send it to you. It was a 48 hour. 72 hour. Anyway, we made a movie over a weekend, and it's only like 5 minutes long, but it's a scary little thing, and I'm very proud of it. So, yeah, I don't know. It's so strange. A friend of mine once said, long ago, he loved Sophia Loren, and she's still alive, actually, of course. And he remembers once that she was scheduled to be at a big international event when she was in her absolute prime, and she got sick and she couldn't go. And somebody from the press said, "Oh, you must be devastated." And she said, "Oh no, life is where I am." And right now I'm homesick, and so that's where I am. And I know that sounds really zen, but I think that's what I've come to, especially the last 2 years. Just like it's happening right now. This is where it is, and there's really nothing else. Dreams or regrets or any of those are just not very real.
Very true words spoken. And I have to ask you one thing, because obviously, like I said, not a day over the age of 28, young man. But like, what I wanted to ask you was, you've done so much in the industry, you've worked so long. Like, how did you stop yourself from ever going, I don't want to do this anymore? Like, was there ever like a moment of lapse where it's like, maybe this isn't right, maybe I should go into something else? I know actors don't necessarily always stay in the industry, but you're still here, you're still going for a lot of the roles. What was there any moment like that in your career?
Wow, that's a great question, Adnan. I think it has something to do with choosing well. And so at my age, I don't audition much. I get offered things, and occasionally I'll go, "Oh, I would have loved to do that, but somebody else got that." So I think I've never been driven the way I see some particularly younger actors are driven, just to, take anything and grab at anything that comes along and get your body in shape so that you can get all those great roles and always be thinking about the coasts. So many people go to New York and then they end up working back here in Denver. They get cast and then they working somewhere in the Midwest or back home. So I don't know. I think I've always said I'm an optimist masquerading as I deep down, I think I'm an optimist. Okay. And then I also have some pessimistic qualities that I override. So I think growing up, I became this extrovert, but I think I'm an introvert masquerading as an extrovert. And so I think theater acting gives me an option. It gives me an out. It gives me a place to put all kinds of things. And so I don't know. I have had years where I did back-to-back shows, like six shows a year, which is about all you can do. And they would wear me out, but they would also exhilarate me. But I just never set that as the bar. I never set it as a goal. Mm-hmm. gosh, when Webb started to audition me for Life is Strange, for True Colors, it was a long process. And
Jim, I will interrupt you now because that was going to be generally the next question was going to be how the elephant in the room is obviously Life is Strange, True Colors. How did you get involved in that project and end up being the voice and actor for Duckie as well?
Through my agent, Radical Artists Agency, I was sent to Deck 9, and it was probably at least 4 years ago. And I came out of that first audition with Webb just exhilarated. He's such a wonderful director. And he had us doing like Alexander technique, I think. And I had to do a monologue that he liked. And I could just tell that he wanted me to be Duckie, but I also knew that there were a lot of hoops he had to go through to make sure that would happen. And I feel like almost a year went by before I got called back, and I thought that was dead. But I really wanted that. Because I knew nothing about it. I'm not a gamer. I have yet to watch the game, to play the game. I've watched the entire game on the walkthrough on YouTube, but I have yet to play it. So I'm going to borrow an Xbox soon and do that, but I haven't. There were multiple callbacks, and then finally I got the good news that I was going to be Duckie. And I think most of the shooting that I did, all of it, in fact, where we suited up, all the motion capture, we did in 2019 before the pandemic. And during 2020, I went back in twice. But I went in just for voiceover. And once I had to wear the helmet and the headgear because they needed my face. But the other time I just recorded a whole bunch of multiple lines for when people get close and want to know what Duckie's thinking about and what he just said and all that. So, but it was a brand new world. The people at Deck 9 could not have been more lovely. They could not have done more to make me not feel like the old stupid guy. It was so much fun to have my face scanned and my whole body scanned and have a mask made just for me so that Toby could put all the dots in. And it was like, and so many of my friends were so jealous, and that made it feel even better. It was like, oh yeah, I'm doing that thing. Yeah, it's fun. It's cool. It's great. It made me feel awfully switched on for a while. I hope that answered your question.
Absolutely. A very memorable performance. I know everyone who loves Duckie and no one who doesn't like Duckie, which is, I think, a testament to your performance and a character that captured a lot of people's hearts. And with that, obviously, with the game, it's under NDA, it's under a lot of code names, and you're working on the project for quite a while. What were your first impressions of when you saw what Duckie looked like? And did you get a character spec as well of him when you auditioned?
No, I what's interesting is I think my avatar, if that's correct to call my image, I was one of the last renderings that I saw, but then once he was figured out, I would be in the studio, and I could actually in real time see myself move with Duckie imposed over me. And I was even told that it could end up not being my voice if my voice didn't work. That adjustments might need to be made. So I look at Duckie and I hear my voice, and like most actors, I think I hate my voice. So I hear that and I go, do I really sound like that? And then I watch that voice coming out of Duckie, and I think, yeah, I think that's a pretty good fit. I think that's a pretty good match. And something really comical, Adnan, is that the first day that I went in for scanning, I had a beard. I was doing a play, and which Erika actually saw, Our Town. And Corwin said, oh, I forgot to tell you, the beard has to go. And so the first day I was working at Deck 9, was given a little plastic Bic or whatever razor and some shaving cream. And I remember standing in the bathroom for over an hour trying to get this fairly good size beard, like yours. It was about the size of yours. And there I was scraping it off. And Corwin felt so terrible. And I had to tell my director there was no time to get permission. And we were closing that weekend, our town. So I told my director, I said, I have to tell you that I had to shave my beard this morning. So I will do 2 performances sans beard. And he texted back immediately, lovely guy, Len Matteo, and he said, the show is ruined. I said, and then to make sure I knew he was joking, he texted me again in Mumbles. Never mind. He said, that's okay. I just shaved my pubes. so he made it okay for me. But they told me that if I had been scanned with a beard, my beard would have to be exactly the same size every single time. So, it was a no-brainer. Just get the thing off. And I think I'm babbling, but oh my gosh, the craziest day for me, and I don't know if Erika talked about it, but when we did the dance, which I absolutely love,
Jim, I'm going to stop you there. I'm going to bring that on later because there is actually questions relating to the dance. So I'm going to leave it. I
keep jumping ahead, don't I?
You're hitting all my points. You're reading my mind, but I'm going to leave that because I'm going to let people tease on that because obviously that's a big scene and I do want to talk about it. But no, there's no denying your testament to the character, especially the fact that you shaved your beard. I feel like that would be a deal breaker for me if I was in this role. I don't know if I could commit to it. So absolutely full commitment. And I kind of want to stick with, Duckie's landed. You talked about Deck 9, Corwin, the other people that worked on the project. But first day, you arrive on at Deck 9's in-house studio for mocap. Talk me about the experience, because like you said, I don't think you've ever done mocap before. This is a new world of the gaming world for you. Talk me through that experience when you arrived there.
It was incredible. I was taken into a little dressing room and shown my suit, which I could only compare to a scuba suit. And so I squeezed into it. I think I weighed a little more than I do now. And so I got myself all zipped up and thought, okay, this is going to work. And I went into the studio and Caitlin proceeded to put shoes on me and gloves on me and then put the little balls all over me. And she's so divine and could not have been more reassuring. And then, it was a learning curve I've never done an A pose in my life and I kept forgetting. Plus everything in the room is apple boxes and stools and planks and nothing that looks anything like. And yet we had all been shown what some of the interiors and exteriors look like. Duckie doesn't spend much time outside, so mine was mostly bellying up to the bar or behind the bar or something like that. So it was just, I was nervous, I have to say, and especially we never were given terribly heavy line loads. We would maybe have, I don't know. For me, Erika would not say this is true of her. She is in almost every frame, but I would always have to really be sure that I was tightly memorized, even if it was just a dozen lines, because when you're suited up and the helmet is on and you're worried about A poses and all of that, the last thing on your mind can be remembering the lines. Of course, the good news is if you screw it up, then you can shoot it again, but you also feel terrible being the person who ruined an almost perfect shot, And Webb is so wonderful at taking many, he gives himself lots of choices. And so it never felt rushed. I always felt supported. Even when he said, okay, I know I've got one, I've got to take that away, but let's just try one more thing. And he would just throw something out. And as an actor, I think there are actors who would go, tell me what you want. I don't know what you're talking about. But his was just always like, let's just have fun and see what else we might capture. And so that word capture, we're capturing way more than motion in that room. So I just found it magical, and I would love to do it again. I think there should be a Duckie spin-off. And
Jim, I think it's probably best not to tease the fans for that, because I feel like they would be all over that game. They definitely want that. I feel like you've robbed my script for this show, because the next question was obviously going to be, I mentioned him at the beginning, and now you've mentioned him yourself, which is Webb Pickersgill. He's the True Colours performance director. And I was going to say, how was the experience working with him bringing Duckie to life? And you've worked with a lot of directors in your lifetime. what's it like working with someone like him, especially in the terms of in the gaming world, and how different it is compared to all those other roles that you've performed in?
That's what a great question. I'm not going to name any names except Webb's, okay? But in my life, well, my best friend Josh Hartwell is a wonderful director, and he has directed me a couple of times, and I've loved it. And he's not easy. I mean, he can be really demanding, even demanding of his best friend. But I have over the years, I've worked with directors who do not create a safe place for me to take risks that would be appropriate to the building of a character. And they want me to put on a paper doll suit. They already have some vision in their minds. And I've always been an actor who works from the inside out. I'm not like Olivier, who just says, give me the hat and the cane and the character will come. But he still was miraculous. And I also don't like directors who are too touchy-feely and gooey, or who think, oh, Jim, it's Jim, so Jim gets to do whatever he wants. I just hate that. And I hate it when other actors are allowed to just do whatever they want, change the script or embroider in an area that doesn't require embroidering. So, but I think acting is starting with who I am, and taking the character as written, which was what made Duckie interesting, because, I did him in fits and starts and bits and pieces. There was never a through line where in a play, movies, of course, are fits and starts and bits and pieces too. But I like a director who calls me on my shit, who has the confidence in me to say, well, try something else. And lets me explore and gradually, like whatever the word would be, fuse the character as written by the playwright or the scriptwriter and who I am. Because and that's why I just don't want to be the old guy in the hospital bed hooked up to tubes, because anybody could do that. A dummy could do that. So yeah, I like a director who gives me some leeway, but also has an idea, who keeps the other actors kind of in check too. And by that, it just means that they're not just running rogue and doing whatever they want. And I've worked with a lot of really good directors in my life, and I've worked with a lot of directors. I was miserable, absolutely miserable. And people would say, "Oh, you got to work with so-and-so. How was that?" And I would, well, between you and me, it was awful. It was awful.
I can imagine. So, obviously, Webb, very wonderful human being. I've had the opportunity to speak to him myself, and truly genuine through and through. So bear with me with this next question. So, whilst this series kind of kicked off with Anastasia, I learned more about Webb's appreciation for Meisner. And Anastasia was a big fan of Meisner.
Mori, I said Alexander, didn't I? Sorry.
Yeah, Alex. So Meisner. And Erika Mori isn't a huge fan of Meisner, as she very explicitly told me. But there was two different stances of Meisner there from two actors. You're an actor who's worked in theatre for such a long time. I know Sanford Meisner has a huge background in theatre. I kind of wanted to pick your brains about it, especially your insight of what was it like when you realized that Webb wanted to introduce Meisner into this kind of project? And what do you feel like Meisner introduced into this project that you felt that you wouldn't get if you hadn't used that technique in the acting?
Well, if you want a just a brutally honest answer,
please.
I will say that I grew up, around the Stella Adler actors, not around them, but I mean, I never learned those techniques. That's what I'm telling you. And so the day that Webb laid Meisner on us, I don't know what Webb would say. I didn't pretend I knew, but I think I did what he wanted me to do. And so I was just executing some of the techniques based on my trusting him. And he could so easily at that point have said, well, surely you know this. Is this the first time you've ever done this? And I would have I wouldn't have lied. I would have said, yeah, I've never done this. And, well, how did you make it to 76, which I would have been, or 75? And I would have said, well, it's always been around me, but it's never, I did train in college, but then, I continued to take workshops, but Meisner was never part of it. And, so, but I loved it. I really did. And you would have thought I would go, oh, I've got to do more of that, but I haven't done that yet. So, is there still time?
There's always time. I'm a bit surprised. I did think that maybe the Meisner would have been a long part of your history and theatre, but like as Erika told me, like it's not necessary for everyone, and it's not everyone's cup of tea either. So, I completely understand that. And I'm going to stick with Webb. One more thing, which is going to ask you is. You're a person that's learned a lot of things from directors, and we kind of talked about it, but I kind of wanted to know, was there something that Webb taught you in this project that you felt like you never picked up on, that you walked away from it thinking like, hey, this is something that I never really tapped into my acting?
Taught me, I would have to struggle. That would be my thought problem, and then I'll email you tomorrow.
Well, let's rephrase that then. What was the best takeaway that you took away from the experience working with Webb? And then hoping like in the future, like a director, you hope that kind of taps into that in another performance.
Maybe, I think if I weren't getting what I got from Webb the next time. So really, the only thing I've done since we got Life is True Colors in the Can is this repeat of this Christmas Carol. So I sort of, I've done it 4 years, so just did that again. So I think I would, based on what Webb made me feel like, made me believe I could do, and then just to be so appreciated. I have so much fan mail. It's just crazy. I think I would ask for that. If it weren't offered, I think I would say, well, I've done this one other time, and in that situation, this is how it was, and that really was nurturing and wonderful for me. So can I have that? Could you bring that to the table? So, I think I didn't, until you asked that question, I didn't really realize that was the last thing I did before COVID. And I went away from it just so jazzed and so pleased. And I guess I was doing Our Town during the filming because Zach came to see it and he said, "Oh my God, you were the stage manager." And it was the first time he met me. And I hope I answered your question.
No, you did. And I feel like I'm going to move Webb out of the conversation now because I'm going to bring in Anastasia Davidson and Erika Mori, who you know from the Butterfly Effect Theatre of Colorado. Mouthful, but got it in one go. But I'm curious to know, with Erika and Anastasia, had you worked with them prior to this project on anything in the theatre world? Or did you know about them? I think you said that you knew Erika, but did you know about Anastasia before this?
I knew Anastasia and I did a play called Going to a Place Where You Already Are, and she played my granddaughter.
Oh.
And it was a play about my wife in the play is suddenly diagnosed with a terminal illness, and my granddaughter shows up, and it's an edgy, beautiful play. And I think we just really grew to love each other during that. And Erika, I saw a couple of times. I saw her in The Wolves. I saw her in a couple of other things. And then suddenly she was a member of the Butterfly Effect, the Butterfly Effect Theater Company. And I don't think I met Erika like in person until a picnic at Deck 9, when we still had no idea what we were going to call this thing. And, we had to take our scripts to Deck 9 locked in a metal box and leave them there to be shredded when we were done. And, terrified of leaking anything. And suddenly to see this radiant woman in the flesh, in this beautiful day, picnic eating ice cream, Yeah, and she's one of those people you just fall in love with, and so I feel like I've known her far longer. And most of the people in True Colors I never met. Mm-hmm. I never met Gabe. I never met Jed. Well, I did meet Jed. I met Jed, but many of the characters I never met Ryan. Maybe I did one day. He had flown in and we were in the same dressing room. But my scenes were really with Anastasia and Erika, and then some sort of group things. So, yeah, and I don't know. I just think they're both extremely talented and extremely lovely, just lovely human beings.
I completely agree with you, having spoken to them. They're both lovely. All three of you are lovely. I kind of wanted to stick with one thing. Obviously, this is a project under NDA, a lot of it. And then you kind of come into the project. As you said, you worked with Anastasia, knew of Erika Mori through just generally like having the chance to meet her. But then you're working on this project. And I kind of want to take the experience you had with Anastasia in the theatre world, and now we're going to go into the gaming world of this. How different was it to kind of like work with her and then go into this kind of realm of like acting that you never done before as well?
Yeah. Well, there's something so bizarre about acting with someone who was dressed in the same scuba suit and helmet with, about the size of a steering wheel with a light, and you have all kinds of switches. And so there's something, I think it's even more magical when, and you trust, you've got your lines, they've got their lines, Webb is giving you wonderful direction. And so in the middle of it all, imagining that the apple box is something that isn't, you still have this feeling of connection, of a character, even though you may not know your whole through line of your character because they're still inventing it. And that's why I think Webb would so often want so many options, because if it goes this way, then we've got that. And if it goes another way, we've got that. And with Erika particularly, we had more scenes together, and I will never know how she stayed on top of all of her lines, because I think she was 50 times busier than I. So when I watched the walkthrough, I thought, my God, she's always on. So my appreciation for her just skyrocketed. And yet, on the day that I was there for a few hours with her, it was just magical. And I never have done a stage play with her. So I would love to do that someday.
Hopefully. And Jim, like I said, I interrupted you before, but we're obviously coming on to that moment, which is you and Erika specifically had one of the best scenes in the game for me, which is the dance scene between Duckie and Alex Chen. Absolutely captured my heart, captured a lot of fans' hearts. I imagine you probably got a lot of messages about it, but walk me through that experience. What was it like, the two of you on mocap doing that scene? Did you think it would be as magical as it turned out to be?
Oh, I was floored when I saw it in the walkthrough. Because we truly imagine with the steering wheels around our heads, trying to look like we were having an intimate dance. And we were taught to do all kinds of things, like how to take a drink without actually putting whatever you were holding into your mouth and all of that. But that was just, I could not imagine how that scene was ever going to look magical. And I probably watched it 10 times because I just couldn't believe that it looked that good, that it felt that wonderful. And the music, which we wouldn't have had in the room. I mean, that, and if you watch us dance, you sort of see like we're just steppy, but it still looks like we're dancing, and she is doing the, I've had so many people write to me about that scene and just say, one man particularly said, my wife is the reason that I want to stay alive. And when Alex dances with Duckie and sort of honors everything that he had with Tabitha and is bringing back that kind of, it never felt like a romantic scene. It always just felt like a love scene in that one human being was giving another human being exactly what that person needed at that moment. And so, yeah, but it's so weird because you never forget that you're in the scuba suit. And so to get, if I were to do that scene on stage, or maybe even in a film where it was me and my body and Erika and her body, then it would be very different. But yeah, I can never let go of how comical it was and how much we laughed as we kept bumping into each other, trying to figure out a way to stand like. And Webb kept assuring us, no, the experts, the animators will figure this out. They'll know how to make it look like you're together. But I was still so pleased and so stunned, really.
Oh, absolutely. And I was the exact same. And I feel like in that as well, I have to ask a very important question, which is, who's the better dancer out of you and Erika?
Erika by a mile. Oh my God. I'm not a terrible dancer, but boy, if I went to an audition, I was in a production of White Christmas, and all we had to do at the end during curtain call, I played the general, and all we had to do was in curtain call was do one little tap step. I never got it right. And my director finally just said, Jim, just smile, just beam, and they won't be looking at your feet, which was a good direction. Yeah, I'm a terrible dancer.
Well, she did say that you were the better dancer when I asked her. So I feel like that's something there to take away from it. And she's apparently a very good dancer as well, from what I've heard as well. It's like, I feel like it's full credit from her on that part. I'm going to stick with Anastasia and Erika one more time, because I'm going to say, like I said, you've been in the industry for a long time, meet a lot of actors. I think that I can see them as like a new generation of actors coming through, and they'll have a very different acting philosophy, just a different perception of like the world as well. I feel like when you work with actors like them and you kind of like just spend more time around them, what kind of things do you absorb as like, you're the veteran actor, they're the up and comers, some maybe even rookies a little bit. Erika had been out the industry for a while, she came back in. What kind of things do you absorb from those actors, and what are kind of the things that you tell those actors as kind of like words of wisdom, essentially?
Wow. I think my answer is probably going to embarrass me, but I don't feel like I'm older than they are. I don't feel like I'm the wise. I just don't. And so I think I learn from them as human beings. But for me, almost all of my friends are in their 30s and 40s. And I think that's probably, maybe I'm just have lived a whole life of denial, but I just mostly find old people boring and selfish and focused on their aches and pains. And I think that what I get from being in a play or on a movie set with younger people is I think I get to just soak up their youth and vibrancy, and yet I don't spend any time going, oh, I wish I was young again. And certainly if anybody said to me a question like yours, what have you learned in your 50 years that you can lay on me? I'd probably think of something, but I have to tell you, when I saw Anastasia just a few days ago, and I don't know. I just feel like I feel like I'm her age in an ageless way, and if she were not professional, so professional, and same with Erika, and I really haven't done much with the millennial generation, so I'm not sure how I would. I hear stories from people who are in larger theater companies about a very different work ethic and a very different outlook and a very different kind of self-absorption. But I haven't really had an experience that makes me develop any theories. And I think people like Erika and Anastasia are people who feel the same way about theater that I do. Mm-hmm. That it's something we do. It's for some quirky reason we want to spend a good part of our lives pretending we're someone we're not, and interacting with other people who are pretending that they're something that they're not. So there's something magical about that, but I just can't really bring generation to it in any aha kind of way.
Oh, I can imagine. And I feel like I was one of those things to ask about whether the experiences are different from generation to generation. But I'll move them two ladies out of the picture, even though they are very wonderful as they are. But I'll move them out because I want to kind of bring back in the motion capture. And Duckie specifically, like you said many times, and I even read as well, you didn't want to play the roles where you're in a bed the old man dying. This is a different role. This is a character who's quite eccentric. His mannerisms are there. This is the first Life is Strange game that uses full body performance capture. Like, they've really emphasized that. I know Webb really put a stress on mannerisms, and obviously the acting you kind of mentioned to it, but I kind of wanted to know, what was the preparation that you put into the role of Duckie, like beforehand, before you came onto the motion capture? And was there something that you drew inspiration from for the character in terms of like getting that eccentric behavior? Was there like a past performance, another actor's performance, or maybe even your own personality you kind of like picked out and wanted to put into this character?
I think as I told you, I don't like my own voice. I don't like hearing it, but I also know that I have a range, and I have a variety of colors and whatever textures. And I think it was really Webb who, because I was already doing some of Duckie's dialogue before I really knew very much about him. And so relying on Reginald McCallister III, I just knew there would be a sort of, even though he's a mountain guy now and dresses like a miner or a cowboy or whatever, I just knew there was something in his past that had to do with refinement or intelligence, a certain worldliness, and so I think whenever I would get a direction from Webb, and I would try a different read, and then he would go, that's it. I think that's how I found Duckie. It was Webb who was coaxing it out of me, and I don't think there was any way to, I could have spent a whole lot of time creating a backstory for Duckie, and I tended to just live with what was in the script. Mm-hmm. It's funny because I love reading novels where an author can spend all the time in the world giving backstory, but a play, you get 2.5 hours, and if the audience doesn't leave wishing they knew more about some of the characters, it probably wouldn't have been very interesting. But the playwright who tries to answer all of those questions is probably going to create something that's not very watchable. So I think there was something about letting Duckie sneak up on me, and really knowing from Webb that, I was giving him what he wanted in terms of a read, and as I would go over my lines to make sure I was just completely tight, and we could still have our script off to the side if we had to go, shit, I forgot what that word was, and things had to pretty much be perfect because it needed to match the script so that everything gelled in the end. So, I wish I could give you a much more complex answer,
Oh, don't worry about it. Sometimes I look for a complex answer where there's no complex answer anyway, but the simple answers aren't fine. And one thing I wanted to kind of pick up on there, it was the mannerisms, because obviously when I spoke to Anastasia, she said that Webb's idea was like to kind of have our arms folded, to kind of add a bit more kind of like to the character of Diana. And Erika said that like she tried to fiddle with her ring on her hand, but they didn't include that in the end because they were like, we can't do that for the motion capture. But I wanted to know, was there anything that you tried to do with like the motion capture in terms of like Duckie's body movement? Because obviously I know Webb will give you directions saying, can we try like maybe him like standing up, maybe shoulders up, but like, was there anything that you suggested or kind of tried that wasn't initially in the script essentially?
I don't think there was anything that I tried that I had to throw away. I would say it was more about showing up, memorized, and then ready to be directed in a variety of directions. And so maybe if I can be proud of myself for anything, it would be that I was open to that I didn't arrive with something that was, I had to do it this way because it's how it seems to me or feels to me or whatever. But I watch Duckie and I think, he's pretty eccentric. And I don't remember thinking that as I was doing. I knew he had a little bit of a wacky streak. I knew he was a fun guy, but he was also a really sad guy. Mm-hmm. And I drink a lot of wine, and so I really connected to Duckie. He wasn't drinking wine, but he was definitely letting the sauce get him through the day.
I feel like a lot of us do that as well with the sauce. So it's a very relatable trait for you. And we mentioned it early on, you brought up Corwin when he obviously asked you to shave his beard off. But, I like giving Webb a lot of his credit because he deserves it with the true colors. But he had a wonderful, talented team behind him on the mocap set, technicians, producers. I kind of wanted to ask you, because you worked on the project for quite some time. What was it like always having them as like the support network to kind of help build this project and give you any support that you needed during it?
It was magical. And I would go 2 months maybe without having, and then I might have a half a day of work. And it was always like going to see old friends. And when I got to go back during COVID, not everybody was there. So in fact, then I really missed them. But and I don't think they ever sat around and talked about how they were going to function as a team, but just everybody, Caitlin and Toby and Chuck and Corwin and Webb, and everybody was wonderful. And especially, as I said, because it was all a brand new world to me, and they could so easily have made me feel stupid, and I never felt stupid one time. Well, when I would forget the A post, and Caitlin would have to remind me again, but that's as serious as it ever got. They just create. I'm imagining the studio right now, which would probably disappoint so many people because it's just a square room with a relatively high ceiling with a lot of tape on the floor and a lot of planks and stools and apple boxes sitting around, and that magic that shows up in the end comes from that is even cooler. It's more magical.
Oh, absolutely. The simplicity of the motion capture set and then what it turns out to be is like, it just blows my mind every single time I see anything from behind the scenes. I have to ask you, I might know what the answer might be for this, but what was your favorite scene to record in mocap and why, out of all the scenes that you did as well?
Well, the gnome during the LARP, when that showed up in the walkthrough, I thought, and people were already talking about it. And I think the day we filmed it, I had no idea what it was going to look like. And so that was a lot of fun. And especially because it was all about Duckie behind the bar, robbing the booze and all of that. But I think I would have to say the dancing, the dance scene was my favorite day there. And then particularly seeing, so those two scenes with those two results are just like exceeded my expectation in a tremendous way.
Absolutely. I was going to bring up the LARP in a moment, but I'm going to bring it in here because obviously Gnome Duckie was another highlight for me, absolutely all the way through. And what was it like when you actually read that and you're like, okay, what am I going to do here? What was the kind of like, what was going through your mind when you saw that scene?
I think Webb talked to me through it, but I just think I didn't. So I knew, and the action was simple enough. Suddenly this thing is rising from behind the bar. But I think in the dance, it was more not worried, but I wondered, how will they ever take away the fact that we're butting heads? But with the gnome, it was just, I hadn't visualized, or maybe if I had, I forgot, so that when I finally did the walkthrough, I was just left, and I was very pleased with the way it looked.
It turned out perfect. Like I said, it was great. But, you mentioned it before, you didn't get to work at every actor on this project. And like, I know that they did table reads for certain moments. It just wasn't feasible with the studio side to get all the actors in. But I'd ask you, if you had the opportunity to work with one actor for a little bit longer, even if you worked with them now on the actual project, if you didn't, which actor would you want to work with, like, or their character? Like, if you had a chance to put Duckie's scene with someone else, is there anyone in mind you want to connect with, like, in this game?
I had a nice little scene with Anastasia, so that was, I could sure use more of that. I think Erika would probably be the top of my list because, like I said, the only acting we've done together was the mocap, and I think that it would be great fun. to do something more with her.
I believe you're a director in the theatre world as well, aren't you?
Yeah, I haven't directed in a few years, but yeah, absolutely.
It'd be a dream project to work with Anastasia and Erika in the theatre as you as the director.
Let's do it.
I'll make sure to see this. So that there's a moment for them. Right, we're going to be with the mocap. We talked about it for a lot, but obviously, you've watched the game, you've seen it. What were your overall thoughts when you learned more about the true color story? This girl, Alex Chen, she has the ability to read emotions. What was the original kind of like thoughts in your mind when you heard about this project and the actual story of it?
I was so moved by, again, I think my impression of when I heard story-driven video game, story-driven, that was almost a new concept to me, not being a gamer. So, and then Webb walked me into it, and I got to see some of the first episode way early, where Alex rescues the boy. And we played that, so I got to see how it was going to be. And what was crazy for me was that like 2 days later, after playing about 30 minutes, I was still wondering about those people. How are they doing? So there was something about the immersiveness of it that affected me, because I watch movies all the time, then go to lots of live theater, but this did something to me that I had never had happen to me, and then when I found out the story was going to be about diversity, it was going to be about inclusion, huge issues for me. It made me all the prouder to be part of it. And when I watched Alex's journey, it touches so many little points in my life. My wicked stepmother for 5 years between the ages of 4 and 9, I lived in that. It was practically like a foster home. And so when I when I did the walkthrough, I was just so touched at how, and then, to just reconnect with your brother and then lose him. So all of those themes that are Duckie's loss of Tabitha and trying to figure out a reason that he wants to keep going. I just love those elements. And then adding the mystery to it, the mining mystery. I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm sure everybody has already played, but that just made it even cooler. It was like, wow, it's a great story. And there are great characters. I'm trying to think. Oh my gosh, the name, Katie's character.
Oh, Steph.
I couldn't get Steph to come to that plot line. When they kissed, I just, that was so wonderful. It was just magic. It was like fireworks. Well, it was. But I just remember going, oh my God, that is just beautiful. I think I can, and I just had no idea that an interactive story-driven game could possibly be instructive and therapeutic and helpful and valuable and I've learned that from some of the fan emails I've gotten, that even Duckie has but Duckie has helped people figure out some things. And
no,
I mean, I think I learned most of what I know about life from the movies, but this is different from anything I'd ever experienced, and I haven't even played it.
Yeah, absolutely. All the characters seem to hit home, like including Steph, Alex, and even Duckie. Like, there's so many powerful messages with it, and I can see why it resonates with, and especially with Life is Strange. It's always a series that resonates with people. And I kind of want to ask you as well. You're a Colorado man through and through. You must have been kind of blown away by Haven Springs when they obviously Deck Nine's taking inspiration from Colorado for this. What were your thoughts when you saw what it looked like? And did you notice, like, were you actually that surprised by how well it embedded the Colorado culture into this town?
It's that again is a great question, because a few years ago I spent 3 months in Creede, Colorado, which is a little mining town of about 300 people, but it has in the winter, and it's kind of kind of tucked away, and at some point you get snowed in there. But in the summer they have a really successful summer theater that's it's an equity house, and it's Creed Repertory Theater, and they do a couple of shows in rap. And so I did the old guy in August Osage County and got to spend 3 months in Creed. I came back to Denver a couple of times, but it's 5 hours away. So when I first read the script, I thought, oh my God, this is Creed. But most people tell me they think it's either like Crested Butte or Telluride, or maybe even Breckenridge, because the bridge is so freaking cute, and the rushing river, and all of the shops that are probably mostly from the mining days, and painted kind of like Painted Ladies, and it made me extra excited about it and kind of proud of it. It's like, I love that this is set in Colorado and somebody in China is watching it.
No, I can imagine that, because I saw, I think it was maybe a couple of months ago, Anastasia posted a picture on her Twitter where it was like a random, bar that she was in Colorado, and she's like, there's someone like, she just took a picture of back of someone's head, it looked like Duckie, and she's like, look, I found Duckie in a Colorado bar, and I was like, is it this realistic, like how much it looks and feels? But obviously they released a video on the Life is Strange YouTube channel, and they showed the town that they kind of took inspiration from. I was like, wow, it's obviously not a big state, but like, to take that much inspiration from it, I just wanted to kind of hear your perspective, because I imagine it must have you must have been blown away by it completely.
I wasn't. I think it takes me clear back to one of your first questions, is what made me stay in Colorado. And I think this state, I will never be able to explore. And someone said to me once that if you flattened out the mountains, that we would be the largest state in the U.S. But I can drive, and I live in right downtown Denver, but within 30 minutes, I can be in the mountains, and in 60 minutes, I can be in wilderness. And in 60 minutes in the summer, I can be at the top of Mount Evans, which is 14,000 feet, on a brutally hot August day. I can drive to the top of Mount Evans and be cold and play with snow. So there's just something about this state, and too many people are moving here. and our biggest issue is water. Where are we going to get water? It's not like the Arabian Gulf where we can desalinate. We have nothing to desalinate. We need, well, the good news is, the last couple of days it's been snowing in the high country, and finally they're saying a foot of snow. We on New Year's Eve are supposed to get 2 inches, and that will be really the first moisture we've had since September, I think.
It's mad. Like I know the weather's kind of like so different in the States, and even like Florida, for example, if you live there, you're just basically waiting to get like a complete freak storm of weather. So obviously I know you're experiencing Colorado from that. So Jim, I'm going to ask you my 2 favorite full questions, which I'm going to start with the first one, which is, Jim, what is your favorite thing about Duckie, and why?
I think it's that he is hellbent to keep going, and that, and I think he has a heart of gold, and he loves the sauce, and I connect to him on those levels. I know that's kind of shallow, but that I love doing him, and I love seeing what he was turned into based on what I contributed to the story, to the process.
Fair point. And my other question is going to be, say, Jim, if you had the chance to change or add something to Duckie, I give you unparalleled power here to add or change something. What would you add or change to Duckie if you had the chance? Would it be a certain thing you want to flesh out in the character a bit more? Is there anything that comes to your mind?
I think, again, this is going to be a kind of shallow answer. I wish he had more to do. I wish I got to live in his world longer, and not because I need to have a bigger part. It's really not that. It's just, a little bit about his past, you know a little bit about his instant connection to Alex. I wouldn't say even a little bit. You know a lot, but I have a feeling that there's just so much to be. There would have been more to be mined, but I know it's not in the. Mm-hmm. So it never felt. I was never disappointed during the process, but as I watched the walkthrough, I thought it would have been fun to have had more to do.
Oh, absolutely. I know, like with I think like they never expect some of these characters to take off the way that they do. Like obviously, like Katie's character of Steph, she was a very small character in the Before the Storm, and they brought her into a main character role, and she even got her own DLC in True Colors. So like I always think that the success of some of these characters, I think maybe they even don't imagine it as being as big as it gets. And I feel like that's going to tap into my next question, because obviously you say you're an optimist, you're a pessimist, as you should be as an actor, but you know, I'm not going to say you wouldn't want to reprise the role, but like, are you hopeful that we'll see this character again in another game? Because obviously Steph's character came from another game, but do you wish that they will see another Duckie in another Life is Strange game?
Yeah, because I think the answer has to be yes, because I think it's pretty hard to play a different. I would think it would be hard to play a different character in a game like this, because I think it would be too obvious. So that's the guy who played Duckie, and I'm assuming that maybe that wouldn't be a problem, but I would think it would be. So yeah, I think I can't think of anything cooler than to get to live in Duckie a little longer again.
Of course. And we're going to go away from True Colors for a moment, because before this, as I said, I did a lot of digging on you. Your reputation is exactly what it says. Like, and you know, you won a Colorado Theater Guild Lifetime Achievement Award when you were 70. And in 2018, the Denver Center for the Performing Arts, John Moore, wrote a piece about you to mark your 75th birthday. And in that article, he even wrote that you said you wondered if the roles would start to dry up when you won the Lifetime Achievement Awards 5 years prior. I want to kind of pick your mind apart in terms of that transitional period, that 5 years. Like, you know, you're going for those different roles. You stop yourself from going the ones where the guy's lying on the bed, he's dying. And how did you kind of adapt yourself to play these kind of more older roles? Like, you know, you're not necessarily playing the young kind of like Ryan character in Life is Strange. You're playing Duckie, but like, you know, what was it kind of like doing that transitional period? And obviously, as you've played someone like Ebenezer Scrooge, like, you know, what's it like getting into those roles?
You know, it's strange. I when I was redoing my resume recently, I was astonished at how almost all of the roles I've done in the last maybe 20 years have been new plays. And I don't have a huge history of having done. I did do the main role in The Caretaker by Pinter Davies, which was an epic. I thought I would never get all of the lines memorized, but I don't have. I've maybe been in 3 Shakespeare plays, and yet I love Shakespeare. I taught Shakespeare. I have more Shakespeare memorized than probably any other playwright. Just lives in my head. But it's interesting to me that I mostly have been in new plays. And so without deliberately or consciously seeking out new scripts, I just seem to be drawn to those, or they're drawn to me. And I think it's people who know what I do, what I can do, who trust me, are going to maybe offer me something. And so I don't know, if you were to say what role you have to do before you leave the planet, I don't think I have an answer, you know? Oh, I've got to do the Scottish Lord. I've got to do Lear. I always wanted to do Lear, but I feel like, because I sort of believe that everything we need to know about life is in King Lear. I don't know if I'm right or wrong or stupid or crazy, but so I think there's just something about not building a career anymore, if I ever was, and just kind of looking at what was right in front of me and embracing it if it seemed like something that would be worth my time, worth being away from people I love, worth driving to the same place, you know, time after time. Does it kind of answer your question?
Yes, it does. And it hints into another question, which I'll ask in a minute. But I was going to ask you, in this piece that I read by John Moore, the director said it was even more harder work making you, you know, a bit more villainous when it came to being Ebenezer Scrooge. It's like that's the harder part with Jim Hunt, bringing him, making him not a likable person. How are you Scrooge when you're playing Ducky? There's such a big juxtaposition there, Jim. How does this go about?
Again, looking at my resume, I have always been accused of being sweet and nice. And one director I've particularly had trouble with over the years has always been on me for being too nice, making a nasty character nice. But I look at some of my favorite roles: Sterling in a play called Mauritius, Baylor in the Gin Game. I think I got his name wrong. Anyway, I've played some really bad, nasty, crabby men. I did James Cerrone in Long Day's Journey into Night, which is he's lovable and he's also reprehensible. So Scrooge, I think, is a dream role because you get to start out being as crabby as you've ever wanted to be. My favorite line in A Christmas Carol is when the fundraiser says, "But many would rather die than go to the poorhouse and I go, splendid. If they'd rather die, they'd better do it and decrease the surplus population." And to be able to say that kind of just like a throwaway is just so evil. But it's people are especially unhappy this time of the year. And I go, yes, it is quite frigid out there. And so just to get to just relish but then knowing that you're going to end up saying, "I will honor Christmas in my heart with all my heart and try to live it all the year round. I will honor the past, live in the present, and help to make a better future for all." The biggest criticism, because I've played Scrooge 7 times now in 7 different productions. There's a version by Patrick Barlow who adapted 39 Steps. He's a British guy. And strangely, his version has 5 adults, 1 Scrooge, 2 men and 2 women, and they play all of the parts. And then I did a version where all the other characters, except for me, were puppets and masks. And it was incredible. And then this production, which was adapted by my friend Josh, I've done 4 times. And the criticism I always get is that after Past, so I get Marley, and then I get the Ghost of Christmas Past, who shows me young Ebenezer, shows me losing love, shows me turning into this miser. And I'm done. And I've had directors over and over say, "You caved too soon. You can't give up." Dickens needed to rub your nose in present and in future before you get to say, "Okay, I'm a new man," right? And so finding ways to go from, "Oh my God, there she is," to why am I rejoiced beyond all bounds? I have no recollection of being happy to see it. And why am I filled with gladness when I see people say Merry Christmas to each other? You have to dig up ways to go back to that. Nah, he's still the same guy. He hasn't changed at all, or he hasn't changed enough. So yeah, that's been a hard lesson to learn because I think I'm such a sentimental sap that the minute you showed me, but I have to see that no, Tiny Tim is going to die, and then Fisher won't talk to me, which is maddening, just shows me shit. And so in the end, I have my full cycle of redemption. So it's so great to get to do that in, and really, I have to tell you, not getting to do closing night because of a COVID problem was really devastating because we don't have plans to do it again anytime soon. We've done it 4 years in we did it 3 years, then COVID, nothing. And then we did it this year, except for the last performance. So I feel like there's a closure that I didn't get that maybe is good too, because it's just, I'd rather end with an ellipsis.
You know what? Ellipsis is one of the best ways to end. And obviously, before we get into one of my favorite segments, which is the very end, I'm going to ask you one more question. And you kind of hinted at it before, so I've rephrased it. You've been in the industry for over 5 decades. There's so much you've done. what's left, Jim? You've even worked in gaming now as well. I don't imagine that young Jim, like in the world that you were growing up with video games, would have seen a role in video game for you. But what's left for Jim?
I think I still want to be a movie star. Okay, I don't think I've ever given up on that. Just fantasy. I think when it comes to the theater, I would continue to, when it feels really safe to be back into production, because frankly, getting tested twice a week and then finally having to shut down closing night, it definitely dampens my excitement about getting back on the boards. I watched the Jake Gyllenhaal movie last night, The Guilty.
Yes, yeah. I love Jake Gyllenhaal.
Where he's a 911 operator, kind of being punished for being a bad cop. And I thought, wow, that was the most interesting COVID movie I've seen, because it really you feel like you've seen a movie, but then you suddenly go, oh yeah, we're never going to get outside this room. This is all going to be this interior stuff. So, and I did enough of that in the early days of the pandemic. So I'm not excited about that. At Butterfly Effect, we took a play called The Nina Variations by Stephen Dietz, and Stephen Weiss, our director, cast 5 couples. So Josh and I were a couple, and I played Nina, and he's only 47. So that was, and we took the 45 or 48 scenes from the Nina Variation, because it's variations on the end of Chekhov's The Seagull. Mm-hmm. And so 5 couples, we each had about 11 scenes, and we filmed it, and then we aired it. So that was more fun than I thought I was going to be having during COVID. And we made this little movie that I'll send you the link to. Yeah. That was great fun. And then we have a famous house here in Denver called the Molly Brown House, Margaret Brown. And for 27 years, I say 30, but I've been corrected that it was 27 or 28. I play H.G. Wells in this mansion, and people go through the house in groups of, this year it was 10, but it used to be 20, and they stop 6 times and get a 5 or 7 minute story from a dead Victorian author, someone Margaret Brown might have read. And I got to do that this year. We did it live in person, and everybody wearing masks. So I never thought I would be in a world where I'd be looking out at an audience masked, this Molly Brown House audience masked. So I think a safer place to be right now would be a movie set. So I think I'm going to say, I still want to be a movie star. and when I heard that Glenda Jackson was going to do Lear in London, and then she brought it to New York, I said, why would anyone want to learn that much? Why would you want to do that at 80? So if I do have some ambition around the theater left, it would be, to do something like when I did the old guy in August Osage County in Creed, in the mining town. I had an opening scene that was 15 minutes long. Sam Shepard did the movie. And then I went and killed myself. And then my family talks about me for 3 hours. So during those 3 hours, I would hike. If it was evening, I'd go drink at the bar for 3 hours. And then I'd come back for curtain call. And my fellow actors would say, what did you do today? What did you do tonight? And so, something like that would be very appealing to me. But learning some big role right now, I don't know, feels, especially in these dicey, dangerous times, I just don't know. So I want to be a movie star still.
Oh, there's plenty of time left, Jim. There's so much time left, and there's a lot of time left on that. Very good answer. And like I said, we're going to go into the finish line. I've taken a lot of your time up, but one more thing we do, which is the lightning Q&A round, which I hope you're ready for, Jim. So
I hope so.
Oh, you will be. So let's start with now. So we know Duckie loves a whiskey. So if Jim and Duckie sat down at the Black Lantern for a drinking session, who walks out on their feet?
Oh, well, I would probably say, Duckie, I don't drink whiskey much, so why don't you show me how to drink whiskey? And I know I would not walk out on my feet, because even if I have a little scotch, I go, ooh, this is a very different kind of buzz than I get from red wine. So yeah, I would not go out on my feet.
Okay, very good choice. So say if Life is Strange True Colors was made into a movie and they showed a young Duckie, who would you cast for that role and why? You're playing Duckie, obviously, the older version, but say if we did a flashback to Duckie as a young man, who would you pick as an actor? I give you unlimited budget.
Would have to be somebody who's alive. Well, growing up, I was always compared to people like Terrence Stamp, who's still alive, but he's not young anymore. So let me try to figure out who it would be. Well, you know, somebody just like John Cusack, maybe, whom I admire. Yeah, let's just go with that.
Yeah, it's a good shout, good shout.
Not so young anymore, but...
Oh, we can always be young, don't we? We're always young in heart. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
So, Jim, my next question obviously is, Erika Mori walks up to Jim in a bar and challenges him to a dance-off. Jim gets to pick the song. What song are you challenging Erika to a dance-off?
Well, it would have to be a slow one, okay? So it would probably be a waltz, like, you know. I don't think it'd be anything where I had to do, like, fancy moves. So we'll just say something like the Tennessee Waltz or something really schmaltzy, you know, something slow and where we just go round and round and she doesn't know I can't dance. Yeah.
Would she beat you?
Oh, she would beat me. Yeah, because she would break off and probably change partners, and I would probably be standing there going, wow, no wonder she changed partners. She really needed to dance tonight.
Fair enough. I admire your honesty, even though I think you could give her a run for her money. But let's go to the next one, which is, what advice would a current Jim give to a young Jim if he sat down with him?
Oh, wow. Bring mindfulness into your life much sooner than you did. Yeah.
That's fair. That's good. And obviously, if Jim could borrow Alex's power from Life is Strange True Colors, and he could read any emotion of a True Colors actor, who would he pick and why?
I'm trying to think where the most pain is. I mean, Charlotte has a lot. And are you asking me to relate it to the characters in Life is Strange?
Yeah, like who would you, well, and the actor actually specifically, who would you like want to read their emotions if you had that one chance? Anastasia, Erika, Katie.
You know, I think Mac maybe. He's so damaged and so dark, and he would probably be someone I would think would be a project. You know, I could help him.
It's a good shout, and Mac is a great character. And obviously, we're going to end off the lightning round with this final question, Jim, and it's the most important. That's why I left it to the very end. Where does Jim stand on Duckie's ale? On the house, or Ned will hear of this?
Oh my gosh. On the house.
Of course, always on the house. We can never rat out Duckie. He's too great. But yeah, Jim, that is done. That is lightning round. I hope everyone enjoyed this episode of Life After Strange. If you did enjoy it, please leave a like, subscribe, and comment on the YouTube. It really does help. Jim, thank you so much. Absolute pleasure. Hopefully we see Duckie again in the future Life is Strange game. It would be absolutely wonderful to see you again play this character.
Thank you.
No, absolutely capture the mind and hearts of many people. Guys, I hope you enjoyed. PlayStation, there'll be more Life After Strange coming in the future. Take care, guys.